you start with genetically modified corn syrup or some sort of sugar, right? Now we're talking about industry here. So industry is always the default bottom line is make profit, right? So they have no choice. They always have to cut corners. They always have to do the cheapest thing. Otherwise, you're a bad business. That's just how it works. So you're always looking for the cheapest type of syrup or glucose or sweetening agent that you can possibly find. So it's usually GMO corn, maybe sugar beet juice or processed corn juice or something, right? And then you add a whole slew of it gets a bit wild. Unspecified organic toxic materials, organic solvents, um, cobalt, proteinaceous matter that can be sourced from a massive slew of organic sources. We're we're talking about wastewater, so I can talk about this afterwards in a different for a different question. But wastewater, so industrial runoff, industrial wastewater can be sourced as an organic material that they sell to a company in order to manufacture vitamin B12.
I always say these people are full of shit, and now I know they are. Continue.
Yeah, no, that can
Continue.
actually be literally correct. Like literally correct. See, yeah. So then what they would do is they have so they have this sugar product, okay, and then they dump a whole bunch of natural materials into it, right? Let it ferment, and essentially that's not enough, right? So that's not enough. So what they have to do is they have to add into that soup now a massive slew of hyper toxic materials, incredibly toxic materials, um, cyanides, acetones. This is like a nail polish remover. Alcohols, methanols. They do all of this stuff. They throw in all of these chemicals. They'll filter in some way, like with a sieve of some sort, and then they'll have to dehydrate, add more chemicals, and by the end of this process,
Yes.
okay, you started by fermenting a sugar, uh, absolutely a GMO sugar, okay, 100%, and you fed it a whole bunch of very, very, very disturbing organic toxins. All right. This and the bacteria will ferment, and then that's not enough. Then your next job when you're producing B12 is to dump industry chemicals all over the crap, just a whole bunch of them. Then you're gonna dehydrate it, desiccate it, throw more chemicals on it. Okay, after all that's done, and then you'll filter, and then the result that you get from that, this is where the magic comes in. This is where the magic of science comes in. They simply call it B12. At, they just call it B12. Okay, so
I can't do it.
it's very difficult to understand because it's confusing to begin with, right? Science science has a very, very difficult time, all right? And I need to go through context building to understand how we get here in the first place. But if I'm skipping a whole bunch of it and I'm cutting to the end, all right, there are a slew of reasons why society has been created and erected in the way that it has, okay? Starting from the Renaissance in 1300s to the 1600s, moving down through the Enlightenment philosophers that gave us this confidence in the human mind, in the human spirit. We were trying to break away from the old shackles of dogmatic theology, right? And this authority of hyper religious rule and mysticism. So we're trying to break away through all that from all these ages. And we come up to the Industrial Revolution now, where we've been through this process where we are beginning to develop a feverish pitch to glorify the human mind and the scientific process, and literally breaking away from everything that is godly and the rules of God and the rules of nature. We want to literally play God and fashion the world in our own image. Literally the exact the satanic thing, right? The devil, the how it operates. It's the adversary. So now we're into the Industrial Revolution, getting into the 20th century now, and we're just obsessed with mechanizing things. We've developed machines to do everything, and this obsession starts to build in the human mind that the elites of society, the world engineers, they want to do the same thing with life itself. Okay, they want to control life itself in the same way that they've controlled material resources, because there was this playing God fixation in their minds. Okay, and it's that underlying mental ideology, okay, that has impaired the scientific community's ability to think. And it has caused what I was leading to, where I stopped off, say, right? Where they have the sludge now, they just call it B12, like whatever, right? The reason that they feel they can do that is because there is this deadly fear with not knowing something. The scientific community loathes something that they cannot understand, that is beyond them, and they have a very difficult time admitting that there is an aspect of nature that is completely beyond them, more intelligent than them, has been designed by some intelligence that transcends human thought. No, this is anathema to them. Absolutely not. So it is better to just pile on a theory and an explanation that makes no sense, that your experiments and your conclusions absolutely did not arrive at, but they fixate on a theory or an explanation, and they use that, and they try to cram in the experiments regardless of what is produced in the experiment, and they try to mold that to their theory rather than the other way around. And that's the problem. So with B12 now, that process of highly adulterating something with chemicals and just rank nonsense. It'll drive you nuts. Like you go into this, it'll drive you nuts how childishly silly these processes are. The whole period, I know I'm digressing a little bit, but I will get back on track in just a second. The whole period of the vitamin discoveries that took place in the 20th century, based on rank nonsense. Literally, chemists just monkeys throwing crap at each other. Just silliness, and they just arbitrarily decided that the vitamin exists. A whole slew of they exist, but the tests that they use to come to those conclusions do not lead them to those conclusions in any logical way. Okay, if that makes sense.
Yes. Where did you, okay, hold on. There's so much to unpack, but you're a very important person in the raw food movement. So I pray you don't have a B12 deficiency, because we need you, Eli, because you do the research and people just ruminate on their fear and then click on Amazon link and get their B12 because it's, you got to be safe. Why not just take it just to be safe? Just